From EPAWA Weather Consulting, headquartered in Worth Whitehall, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may not reflect those of the staff of EPAWA Weather Consulting LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
And good Sunday morning to another edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, February 13th. We have a little bit of snow this morning, in some cases a lot of snow that was not really expected, and I'll show you why that was here in this video. Just a narrow swath, but we did get some overperforming areas this morning, and then there's some underwhelming areas farther southeast, but I do think you're going to make up for it through the rest of today. So let's get into that first. This is normally a long-range video. We're going to talk about short range and what's going on right now. So this is the high-resolution rapid refresh that ran at 3 o'clock in the morning overnight. It updates every single hour. At 3 o'clock in the morning, it was still very incorrect with the placement of this heaviest axis of snow. See this heavier band right in here? That was the model thinks was going to be right in here. Well, that wasn't right there. It was not there at all. And it had the frontogenesis, which was responsible for this heavier banding elsewhere, which was actually up here in these areas. Those areas there got hit pretty hard. As a matter of fact, I live up in the right about there and had about 5.5 inches this morning. Still lightly snowing right now, but I don't think it's going to add too much to it because it's kind of heavy, so it's compacting a little bit. But regardless, we had more snowfall up in those areas instead of down here. So this is a model that runs every single hour, updates every hour, and it still didn't have it right in that specific hour. It had it down here instead of further northwest. So you're waking up to a surprise this morning in parts of the Lehigh Valley and over into northern New Jersey. So that's really the target areas that got hit. It actually went back to Berks County here, northern Berks County anyway, and kind of cut across here like this. This is where your heavier banding of frontogenesis was. So what that is just an enhanced area of lift, heavy precipitation coming down, and it was coming down in the form of snow. But there's vast differences between paved surface accumulations and elevated / grassy surfaces. So you have some differences there, 4 or more inches. In some cases, I look out at the roads this morning here in where I live, and it's just they've been treated, but I mean there's nothing on the ground there, nothing little salt couldn't take care of. But you got shaded areas of driveways that are a couple inches there, but most of the grass areas are pretty heavy in those particular locations. Now this was actually accurately forecast by the NAM where the frontogenesis was. It's just the snow maps did not respond to where the placement of that should be. So the frontogenesis is actually in this area. It says purple shaded area. See all that right there? That's your area of frontogenesis where the rapidly rising motion is. And where I'm pointing to, these arrows show it. It's hard to see here, but there's a couple shaded areas right in here that's shaded in orange. That's where you have the greatest temperature advection. And that is where you had to get that combined with the heavy lift that was in that area provided the heavy snow in those areas in particular. The rest of the map is not too bad. Looks like it's just that area overperformed. And to be honest with you, when we overperform in certain areas, it's better to do that than underperform, because then you have people that were relying on it for income, or people that are just really, snow weenies or whatever, that really want to see a lot of snow. When you bust low instead of high, it's a big difference. So we're getting a different reaction this morning in those areas. Not too many people mind that, especially since the roadways aren't really too bad. A little slushy, but not able to be treated very easily. So here's what we have for the rest of today. A little bit of snow shower activity still ongoing in some of those areas, but it's mainly going to be a south and east show the rest of the day. And you get some snow going across those areas here. Might come down a little bit heavier for a time across South Jersey and Delaware, but we're looking at maybe like an inch or two, kind of what was forecast down in those areas through the remainder of today. Just a few lingering snow showers just this morning in our far northwestern areas. So now we're going to shift gears into what we have the Weather Weeklies video for, which is the long range. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be giving you the best news if you're a snow lover. If you liked today, bottle it up, save it, stick it in your freezer, whatever you have to do to commemorate it, because it's going to be gone quickly. And we're going to be in a pattern here that is not going to be conducive for snowfall for the remainder of February and at least the beginning of March. After that, there's still a little bit of hope, though. Now, when you get into March, it's a little more difficult to get snow events. It's not impossible, obviously. Our leading analog year was 2018, and that year we had a very lucrative March for a lot of areas because we had, and we actually had a big snowstorm right around the equinox on March 21st. Not saying that's exactly going to happen this way this year, but there's a lot of similarities to that year, and it's been like that all year long. So we have this warmer period coming in here through the end of February. We're going to have a little mixed in couple cold shots here, just transient. So you're going to have one, obviously today through Tuesday, and then we're going to warm up Wednesday, Thursday ahead of a rainstorm that we're expecting. We're going to another shot behind that, but it's just not as impressive as this first one earlier this week coming up. But you will have a slightly below average period for a couple days there too. But then after that, we just turn on the jets here, and we are going to be warmer than average going right into the first week of March. And then after that, look at this. We got some slightly below average periods. Will be enough to produce snow. We don't know that yet. It's a little bit too far out to put any storm signals, and therefore we have an NA here. No winter storm signals listed. Because there's nothing expected through at least early March. But we will revisit this if there's something that pops up during the second week, third week, whatever. But again, March, you're dealing with sun angle issues. You need things to be better timed coming in at night, that kind of thing. Not necessarily, but I mean, you have, if it's not a brutally cold shot in March, you're going to have, you're going to need some other things to happen just right. Timing is going to become more critical. And things like that. So here's what average snowfall is in the month of February. We are not going to reach these totals. We are going to put a dent in it in some areas. Like, for example, Allentown was 0 before this storm. You're now going to be at least 4.7 because that's what the airport had at 7 a.m. this morning. It might add to it maybe a little bit, but it looks like it's going to be about half of what normal is when all is said and done there. But the rest of these areas here are going to be below average as well for this month because we're not expecting anything going forward. March, this is what normal snowfall is in March. So you can still get some snow, but it's kind of like March is like a haves or haves-nots type deal where like we had last year, for example, didn't have anything in March. Nothing, okay? 2018, we had one hell of a March, okay? So it just depends. It's kind of hit or miss with March, whether it hits or not. And you can still even get snow in early April. That's possible too. It's not impossible there. We've seen that, and we did see that last year in some places. So let's get into the analog stuff here first, because this is our ENSO regions, the Eastern Equatorial, Eastern Pacific, that deals with La Nina, and we're very much similar to what we were last week, except a little bit cooler in our eastern areas, but we're still kind of like a very weak La Nina. La Nina is holding on for dear life here, and it's expected to continue to rise toward neutral by the time we get to kind of mid-spring or so. So it's going to go away. We're not thinking we're going to have a continuation of La Nina very much longer. Kind of like mid to late spring, we're back to neutral, and it should be continuing in that path. Here's the sea surface temperature areas where we're talking about those areas specifically, but you can see it's eastern weighted here with the coldest anomalies below what normal is supposed to be for this time of year, but the rest of the map here is pretty similar. And we get to our leading analog year, 2018. This is February 12th, 2018, and the sea surface temperatures there, again, eastern weighted here, but still basin wide. That's what we have here. It's basin wide, but eastern weighted. So it's very similar. Now, this has been similar all year long. It's crazy how usually you have analog years in the beginning of the year. You're saying, okay, well, this is we think at least starting out is going to end up like this, and then it ends up shifting towards something else. I don't really see a lot of shifts here at all. Okay, it's behaving very similarly to 2018. Now, one of the things that's going to drive our pattern in the near term is going to be the Mount-Julian Oscillation. This is the measure of the best convection along the tropical convergence zone, which is about 5 degrees north of the equator, and this is globally, not just in the Pacific. So we're looking at this for a projection from the GFS ensemble. And you might be wondering what's changed since last week. When I did the video last week, it looked like we were going to have a lot more in the way of cold lasting longer, deeper into February. And we actually had a colder than average projection for the month of February. That's not going to work out now. One of the caveats to that forecast last week was if this MJO progression is a little quicker into the maritime continent, which is here, out of phase 3, which features the ups and downs of the cold shots, and like we're going to get this weekend, we're going to have a couple cold shots. So you'll have some milder periods that are synoptically driven by this rainstorm coming in here on Thursday. But you're generally colder than average in phase 3. Once you get to phase 4, you start getting a little warmer. Look at this. Look how quickly it moves into phase 4. And now, by the end of February, you're into phase 5. Well, phase 5 looks like this. That's a very warm phase. Phase 4 in February is kind of slightly milder than average, and then you get to phase 5 and you're really mild. And this will continue. And then if you look at the February projection for phase 5, it's not too dissimilar than this, okay? It actually shifts a little bit further to the northeast U.S. So we're expecting by the end of this month and early March that we will be very warm relative to average. So here's what it looks like on the temperature periods as I move this forward. Here is the little cool shot coming in around the 19th, 20th or whatever. But then after that, you get warmer, slightly warmer at first. But then you get towards the end of the month. Look at this. Look at that. Look at that warmth. Okay, so you're going to be warmer than average again. And then you kind of remain at least slightly above average after that point going into early March, as you can see here. So this is the Wednesday, Thursday deal. Then you and beyond that for the weekend, you have a slightly cooler, not as cold as it's going to be earlier this week coming up, but then you have this big warm up here coming toward for the last week of February, and that's going to extend into March with at least slightly above average temperatures at that time. So looking at this graphically, this is what we have for Allentown Lehigh Valley International Airport, which is the centermost point of our coverage region. This red line represents average temperatures starting here today at 41 for an average high in Allentown, and you get over to February 28th, the average high there is 45. So you can see we are largely above average after you get past this cold snap here. And again, that 19th, 20th period, you're kind of near average. You're not really colder than average at that point. It's just, I mean, it was going to go down, but then after that, you rebound and you're flirting with 60 a couple of these times here, and then still slightly below above average even after that big surge moves through. So you're going to have some. None of this is conducive for snowfall. None of it. And we are here, but you're not going to have any snow events. You had it today. You're having it today. But that's it. After that, you're warmer, and there's no chances through the end of February. This takes you through the end of February, through the 28th of February. There's nothing there. If you look at the 2018 year, and I showed this graphic before, this is looking at that same location, Allentown Lehigh Valley International Airport. And by the way, these images, you can do the same thing at any. I could pull up Philadelphia, I could pull up Newark, I can pull up Wilkes-Barre, Scranton. It's going to be slightly higher or lower with each of these, but the same idea with the above average periods are going to be remaining the same. It's not going to be different, okay? So I'm using this as an example because it's the centermost point of our coverage area, but that just keep that in mind. For the other regions, it's the same thing. I'm just using this as an example. And this is looking at 2018. This is raw data, actual factual data from 2018. And you had some really warm periods in here after a cooler start in the beginning of February, kind of like we have this year. Then you have this mild period here that just straight mild for a long time. You even had an 81-degree temperature on February 21st that year. I'm not saying you're going to be that warm, but you're going to have some temperatures that are going to be flirting with 60 several times, just like happened in 2018 in February. What did March 2018 do here? Well, we went from plus 5.5 to minus 3 in March. Okay, so we went from above average, and then we went to slightly below average in March. So can that happen again? Yes, it can. Sure. Certainly. Here's what we're looking at from that late month period where you're warm on the GFS extended, and then here is the second week of March. Look at that. It goes back to slightly below average. I could show you the Euro Weeklies here. It'll do the same thing. It starts off mild in the beginning of the month, very first couple of days, then we start dropping off, and we're slightly below average as we get to the second and third week of March. So does that mean we're done with snow yet? Can't say that yet. Can't say that. We are done in February, I'll tell you that. After whatever you have today, you're done. The month of March, though, is this slightly below average period that we're expecting to come in during March week 2, March 3, week 3 enough to produce a snow event? It very well could, okay? And we've seen that. If it's going to continue to follow the 2018 analog like it has been doing all winter since basically November, with slight variations. Obviously, it's not going to be exact. No two seasons are going to be exactly alike. But you could have something happen more like 2018 where you have some sneaky snow events there that are just going to be perfectly timed. Again, timing is going to be a little bit more of a concern because of sun angle and things like that. So even if you do get a snow event, it's going to disappear pretty quickly. Okay, the sun angle is more critical when it comes to snow events in March, and they have to be perfectly timed. Kind of maybe starting at night and it's carrying over into the day, and that's fine. But then you get some radiational heating, so it takes away from pavement accumulation. So it might be something like you're dealing with this morning. Even though we had a big area plastered with some heavier snow, 4 to 6 inches plus from that area from the Lehigh Valley up through northwestern New Jersey, you have still a lot of the roadways are not too bad because it's mostly a grassy surfaces accumulation deal. This is a very March-like look to it this morning when you're going outside. So we're going to watch this period closely, see if this is still going to be a thing once we go into March. The analogs are suggesting that, and so are the long-range projections. Again, I could show you the Euro Weeklies. It's doing the same exact thing here with a slightly below average period, weeks 2 and 3 of March. So there is an opportunity. It's just going to matter of it'd be a matter of storm track, timing. Is the sun angle going to play into it? Things like that. So we'll have to watch that going forward. So winter is not over yet, we don't think. We're not going to declare it over this early, but it certainly is over for the month of February. Whatever you get today, that's going to be it until we get to probably that second week of March, okay? So maintaining 2018 as a leading analog, and we're monitoring the MJO progression in the weeks ahead, which will determine how long the colder overall pattern maintains into February and March. Well, guess what? It's going to be warmer now. I shouldn't change that. Warmer it should be, not colder. So how long that warmer period maintains into late February, March. We are going to have that period come in. We're very confident in that. So there's no winter storm signals for the remainder of this month. The next chances are possibly March. And again, just because that's going to turn colder, it's colder relative to average at that time. The average highs are a lot higher in March, okay? So they keep going up. So you're going to have something better timed in order to produce, but the remainder of February is warmer dominant with a few transient cooler shots mixed in. So I don't want to go long-winded today because I know you have some of you have some cleanup to do. And we're really just nothing to talk about as far as storm signals right now. So we will continue to monitor that pattern going into March and see where we're at that point. But the Weather Weeklies videos will continue. We're not stopping the Weather Weeklies video because winter is not canceled from our standpoint, at least not yet. I'm EPAWA meteorologist Bobby Marchus. That is this edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, February 13th. Enjoy the Super Bowl today. Relax, have a good time, and I will see you next week. Take care.